Brad's probably doing 160 kilometers an hour. We're literally meters off the roof of his truck, and as I'm focusing and concentrating on taking all these photos, the helicopter pilot on the headphones, he just pipes up in a cheerful voice like, "Oh, we've got some power lines coming up. Do you want to go under them or over them?" So, I've been struggling for a bit of inspiration lately. I've been sick. My little toddler, Ollie, love him to bits. He got sick from daycare. If you're a parent, you understand that daycare sickness pretty often gets brought home. Parents then get sick. Agency has been flat out busy, so we've had a lot going on, a lot of new customers with the agency, a lot of product content to start shooting for the agency, and I've neglected you guys. I've neglected the guys that are starting to follow us on YouTube, and I really appreciate you. There's been subscribers coming in over the last couple of weeks, which is fantastic to see, and a lot of you are following us for mainly our Facebook ad content and our iOS 14 updates and the perspective that our agency can offer on that. But the thing is, I haven't done YouTube videos for a little while now, and it's because I've lacked inspiration. So what I thought I'd do today is inspire myself by looking back at some of the stuff that I've done in the past. So I plan on doing a series of things like marketer reacts or filmmaker reacts, those sorts of things, but I actually wanted to go back through and look at my own Instagram account from the beginning, and let's pick out, I'm just going to start screen sharing or screen recording my phone, and let's pick out some stories about me, Dave Granfield, pre-agency life, to give you an understanding of who I am. So the very start of my Instagram account tells and shows one thing. Coffee was my life. Now, I think it's ironic that someone like Peter McKinnon now, like he has all these coffee montages of pouring beautiful pour-overs or like Chemex coffees, and that's like he's become known for this guy that produces content with a massive amount of coffee B-roll. I've kind of gone the opposite. I lived and breathed coffee. I owned a cafe and I ran a coffee roastery. I used to roast coffee for other cafes and consumers. Like I was the guy roasting fresh single origin beans. And my Instagram account back then shows that, right? But the thing is, like I look at, say, what Peter McKinnon's doing now and his little coffee B-roll segments. And although I like mad props and respect to that, I secretly drink instant coffee these days. I had a gut full of coffee and got out of the industry, and kind of that's actually what helped me get into the marketing game. That coffee industry is what forged the way for me to become now a co-founder in a really successful agency. And let's go through more of that journey. So you've got Peter McKinnon has like photos of him and montages of him using an AeroPress. This AeroPress shot is from like 2011 when I was first doing a lot of coffee. My latte art skills were they were perfect back then. I was an amazing barista doing 20 kilos of coffee, pouring perfect rosettas every single time. I got to play with green beans from different locations all around the world and got to roast them and bring out the goodness. There's sayings like first crack and second crack, and like that stuff's all ingrained in me now, even though I'm creating completely differently. I'm not creating coffee anymore. I'm not a coffee artisan. I'm now I'm an agency owner. I'm now trying to start becoming this creator and doing content for you guys so that you can learn something from me. But I thought this would be an interesting way for me to just get back and start showing some things of what I do. So I guess even here is my love of photography started happening. So I would be out on the road delivering coffee to people, and I'd be pulling over at the side of the road and taking photos if I saw something. And I guess that's where we can start seeing, like, here's a photo of my very first camera, what was it? It was a Canon, it looks like a Canon 60D or an 80D with a Tamron 18 to 270 lens. I got that first lens because my dad had one. Peter, shout out, hello. My dad had that lens and he used to rave about it, and it was not that great. The aperture's f.3. It was like a super zoom lens, 18 to 270 millimeter. It didn't have a sweet spot. It wasn't sharp. It was, in fact, that particular camera and lens setup was the first setup that I had when I started getting paid to do photography. And my nickname, oh man, my nickname back then, Michael Harron, Randall, if you're watching this, comment below. My nickname was Canon Sharp. I had a hashtag, Canon Sharp. I think my Instagram handle was Canon Sharp. And that derived from the fact that I really had no idea what I was doing. My photography was always shot wide open. I was shooting at like the lowest aperture I could at all times. And that low aperture meant that I never had stuff in focus. I always had such a shallow depth of field that my subjects weren't in focus. All right, let's go a little bit further. So you can see there's a lot of four-wheel drive stuff kind of coming up here. Like that was a large part of my life back then as well. Oh, here's some cool stuff. So the town that I lived in, Toowoomba at the time, that's where my cafe and the roastery was. A lot of cool abandoned building stuff. Like you can see my depth of field here was completely terrible. My composition was pretty good, but I just shot at such a low aperture that I never really got much in the way of like, it's just interesting, right? Like I've come a long way. This was an abandoned building. It was the old milk factory in Toowoomba, and it really you can see that it really started helping with my composition, but then nothing was overly sharp because I was shooting just at such a shallow depth of field. Like there's vignettes on everything that I did. I think I was like the vignette king. At Northern Borders, I watched your video yesterday or last night about your thing was like the blue and the teal, or the blue and the pink. Every photo that you shot was blue and pink. Like every photo I did was really short depth of field and just putting a really massive vignette on it. So this photo was would have been at a full drive event. I would have been at a media pass, and I would have been at the full drive event. There's more and more of these photos. Like I think if I didn't do a vignette, I did sharpening and clarity, and I was in Lightroom and I just get like the clarity bar and just go all the way to the top and like max clarity. There's some cool photos in here. Like I have the ability to take composition back then. Like I was walking around through abandoned buildings taking photos, and then I started doing a little bit of fashion stuff. So I was doing fashion photography for a local clothing boutique, interacting with models and teaching them what to do, teaching them how to move, teaching them to be a little bit more interactive in the clothing that they're wearing. And that was a really fun part of my journey, and just being able to shoot something different. So you can see the shallow depth of field and the vignetting here. Like I think my idea there was to kind of draw focus to the model, but man, it was just terribly done, right? There was just no focus to it whatsoever. I think here's where we're going to start getting to some of the fun stuff. So if I keep on scrolling up, I got to do a lot of then. I started working for a magazine called Dirt Comp. Randall from Dirt Comp, an amazing man. Dirt Comp gave me the ability to start shooting and combining two of my passions. So I got to combine my love of cars and automotive and four-wheel driving with my photography, and I was getting paid to write and create content for Dirt Comp magazine. I got to go and do cool shots like this. So taking these insanely crazy buggies out to locations where they shouldn't go and getting photos of them, or getting stock four-wheel drives that have been modified and doing magazine write-ups and photo shoots for them. And a lot of the time I was just like the second cameraman, or I was the assistant, and I was helping people that were way better than I was at the time. But it gave me the ability to learn. It gave me the ability to understand the process. Getting to hang out and do collaborations with Monster Energy, Toyo Tires, photo shoots of, say, this is Brad Gallard. Getting to do stuff like that and start getting paid for it was awesome. I think by this time I'd moved to Brisbane and I was starting to play with my location stuff again. I was starting to spend time doing more location shooting, traveling to four-wheel drive events whenever I could. I think about this point of time is when I really started making trips. So this would be an iconic photo for me. That is a photo of a section of track out at Alice Springs for the Finke Desert Race, and that is like there's an aeroplane shot there. That is when I was first getting paid to travel to events. So that's my gang. That's my my chimping gang. So we used to call it chimping because you'd take a photo and a car would fly past you at 200 kilometers an hour, and you'd take the photos like rapid bursts, like and then you'd like as soon as the car had gone, you'd have your camera up and you'd like be scrolling through trying to find that image, that one shot that was amazing, like that centerfold magazine shot, and you'd be like chimp looking for it, and then another car would come, so you quickly like set up and rapid fire shot again. And that's honestly, that trip there to the middle of the desert in Australia is where the Canon Sharp hashtag and nickname came about, because I was just shooting at way too short an aperture, wasn't getting the scene correctly. Speaking of chimping, there's the classic chimp photo. So that's Mick Harron, the one that gave me the nickname. He is that's a classic chimp move right there. That is taking a photo or looking at the photos that you just took and missing the most amazing opportunity of another photo. So there's Mick in all his glory chimping, looking at photos that he just got of the previous car that came past while the car's rolling right next to him, and he missed the opportunity to get that photo of that car rolling. There's motorbike shots, so getting to stand beside a track as motorbikes go 100 kilometers an hour past you, like stacking it. Guys racing motorbikes with like handlebars snapped because they've fallen off. Getting epic shots like this where you've got like dust clouds just roosting up into the air as cars are just going all or nothing around this track trying to win a race. This was a really fun part of my life. So I was not married then, no kids, and I got to travel the country doing this stuff. These guys right here, Team Taylor, and then the next leg of what my photography journey was for me. So Team Taylor, who are still amazingly good friends of mine and still customers now of the agency, used to fly me around the country. So not only to Alice Springs, I used to go down to South Australia with them, I'd go to Victoria, I'd travel across New South Wales with them, and I'd follow them around the country taking photos of the events that they were at. This was a really interesting photo here. Like this guy was racing Finke. It's a 200 kilometer race one way, they stay overnight, and then the next day they race back again. I was sitting at probably 30-40 kilometers from the finish line on day 2, and this guy comes flying past me with no back tire on his rim. So he'd already raced about probably like 160, 170 kilometers that morning, and at some stage he'd lost his back tire. He's hasn't slowed him down. He's just gone gangbusters. It keeps on going, right? There's heaps of photos. This was a really fun moment for me. So this is a race at Gundawindi in Queensland, Australia. This is a photo of Brad Gallard taken from a helicopter as he was in the lead to win the race. The interesting thing about this particular day shooting was, one, I was up in a helicopter. Two, I'll never forget. So just to give you an idea, like when you're shooting in a helicopter, you're kind of like, it's like a little helicopter, right? Like it's a little 2-seat R22 or it's a 4-seat R44. Like they're not big helicopters. And in photography, in a helicopter for motorsport, you kind of like, there's no doors on the helicopter. They take the doors off and you wear a harness and you've kind of got your legs hanging out over the edge, right? So you're sitting on the edge of the seat facing out sideways. You've got a harness on. You're then looking through your lens, and it's usually a bigger lens. Like then it was like a 70 to 200 lens, and you're looking through that lens and you have no spatial awareness of where this helicopter is. And we're chasing this guy, Brad Gallard, down this track. Brad's probably doing 160 kilometers an hour. We're literally meters off the roof of his truck. And as I'm focusing and concentrating on taking all these photos, the helicopter pilot on the headphones, he just pipes up in a cheerful voice like, "Oh, we've got some power lines coming up. Do you want to go under them or over them? Do you want to go under or over power lines?" We're in a helicopter chasing a truck at over 100 kilometers an hour. I've got my camera up to my face, looking through my lens, not really aware of where we are. And all I get is this chipper voice in my headphones going, "Oh, do you want to go under or over the power lines that are coming up?" I'm like, "Over, thanks." All right, let's keep on going. Next round of videos, like lots of content from off-road racing now. Off-road racing was my life at this point in time. I was paid to write content, I was paid to take photos, I was traveling around the country taking photos of stuff that I genuinely loved doing. Getting to go to, like, these ones are from Western Australia, so across the whole other side of the country. I live on the east coast of Australia in Queensland. These photos are in the middle of nowhere in the Western Australian desert, where there's people are traveling for days to get to this event, and they're on bikes or on cars or on quad bikes. They're like just insane opportunities to be able to do. So even for me to get to this event, it was a 6-hour flight from one coast to the other, then a wait and get into a little a little airplane, then another 4-hour flight north, and then from there it was get in a rental car and drive for a couple of hours just into the middle of nowhere, into the middle of into the desert. And then from there we'd get the opportunity. There's this particular event that I'm kind of looking at the photos for now. I went to it 3 years in a row, and one year I'm up in the helicopter taking photos, and it's this young girl who's kind of getting her hours up. She's actually a stock musterer. So in Australia, the helicopter pilots in the little R-22s, they one of the ways they get their hours up is they go to the desert and they fly helicopters mustering cattle. So you've got these massive cattle farms that are hundreds of thousands of acres, and these pilots get to chase cows around and muster them and herd them. And so this young girl, not much older than me, is the pilot of this helicopter. She's getting this experience up, and here I am at an off-road race. She's laughing her head off, having so much fun chasing these cars and motorbikes. We're in dry creek beds, and the dry sandy creek beds in Australia have the canopy of trees over them because it's the only source of water. So there's these really big overgrown old trees. Cars are racing up the dry creek bed, and here we are once again, I'm hanging out the side of the helicopter as the helicopter's flying sideways under the canopy of the trees. I'm focusing on taking photos of these cars and bikes, and this chick who's flying the helicopter is just laughing her head off because she's having a ball, and she's like, "This is just like chasing cows." I'm like, well, awesome, but scary. Going back to then shooting content for the off-road racing. So Off-Road Cartel, a clothing company that was really associated with the off-road racing side of thing, got to do some photo work with them. Once again, there I was just the assistant. I didn't actually take the photos. And then here, obviously, I look like I'm meeting my now wife, Casey, in this timeline. And that's when I sort of started really getting into the marketing side of what I was doing. I really sort of changed from traveling the country all the time, and I got more into just nesting down and becoming who I am today. So that's it, guys. I've been taking photos since 2011, so I've been now a decade of taking photos. This was a bit of a memory lane trip for me. Two of the main things for me on this one is I've kind of lost inspiration. I know I want to take this channel along the lines of genuinely sharing my content and my thoughts, but I also want to make sure I'm giving you advice and helping you. This year marks the first year that I'm actually going back to one of those off-road races. So in a few months, I get to fly back out to the middle of Australia, to the desert, to a race called the Fink. And I get to stand on the side of the track again. I get to take photos, I get to take video, I get to be part of that culture that was the foundation for where I am today. It's the foundation of me now running this multi-million-dollar agency, having 23 staff, being able to come back and be creative again. What I did back then and what I'm about to do again is genuinely what I enjoy doing and what I'm passionate about. So this little video was for me to help find my passion again. My Instagram account definitely shows some of what I used to do and where I've come from. So I encourage you, take some time to look back from where you've come from. Take some time to look back at what you've done and celebrate what you've done, and then come up with a plan to move forward. So I've got a big list of ideas for content. It's just a case of now getting the motivation to put pen to paper or put myself in front of the camera and produce that. So give me some feedback. If you like this, comment below. If you've learned anything in photography, like running way too shallow a depth of field, if you've run way too much vignetting on your photos because you thought it was cool, or if you're like guilty like me of just like turning that clarity slider to the max, comment below and let me know if that was you, and tell me, give me your Instagram handles or give me your YouTube channel handles, and I'll go and look at your content as well, and let's celebrate how far you've come in your journey as a creator. Peace out, guys. Really enjoyed this one. That's got me excited for this year.